All right, everyone. Welcome back to Viking Hot Takes. It's been a minute. Here I am back, Eric Thompson. And where's Flip? I think he's supposed to be here. Oh, there he is, right there. I think that's his car. He is currently stuck in Los Angeles traffic because it is still 6 p.m. there and it's still LA. So we have a super sub on the way, but we still have a show this evening, and we are ready to kick off the first Viking Hot Takes of the 2022 season.
What's your take? What's your take? Let's go a Viking on Viking Hot Takes.
Welcome back, everybody. So again, if Flip looks a little different today because he is stuck in traffic, but we got a super sub, super short notice. Our guy Ryan Ortega is coming in to fill in today, so that is an amazing sub. He is like the Kellen Mond except talented backup plan for the Vikings hot takes. Oh, we're getting hot takes right away, but it's football season, guys. The Vikings have almost real football. They have a couple weeks of training camp in. They have like they have a real preseason game that probably most starters won't play in on Sunday in Las Vegas. So it's right around the corner of the 2022 season. Ryan, how are you doing?
Doing great. Yeah, thanks for having me on, and happy to be here. And hopefully we can hit that buzzer like we did last time. That'll be great.
Yep, it's always great to go for that 20-minute buzzer beater. And speaking of which, producer Dave, let's get those 20 minutes on the clock and let's get rolling.
Absolutely.
All right, we're still going to go in the order that we usually do. Ryan and Flip Spot and me in the second. So, Ryan, you can go ahead after this countdown is started here. Three, two, one. Let's start it. You can ask first question.
Perfect. Absolutely. Yeah. So, which player has the most to prove at training camp here this year?
Well, I already mentioned Kellen Mond, so I have to probably give him at least an honorable mention, right? I'll start with a few quick honorable mentions. I think Kellen Mond, especially with today's news about KOC basically saying the backup quarterback might not be on the roster, I think that's pretty telling. I mean, that means things aren't going great for Mond. And another, the other side of the quarterback situation, I think another honorable mention might have to be Kirk Cousins because he finally has an offensive-minded head coach. Nearly all of his weapons are returning on offense, and hopefully including his tight end. There's a lot of continuity on that side of the ball. And I know opinions are still all over the place about Cousins, and the debate about him, I think, will rage on in Vikings Twitter in perpetuity. But if he can't really move up that level, from the general consensus of that reputation of good, sometimes very good, sometimes even great quarterback, but not really great enough to carry his team when it matters the most, I don't know when he ever will. So I think there still is something to prove for Cousins just because he has the new coach and hopefully a new scheme that suits him. Speaking of the tight end, Irv Smith, I mean, he kind of just has to prove he can stay healthy. I mean, and we're not off to a great start with that thumb injury. Hopefully he's back by the beginning of the regular season, and hopefully he can actually make big contributions like we've been hoping for the last couple seasons. Another quick one I think we should touch on is probably Cam Dantzler because he's mostly working with the ones in camp so far. He has been rotating in with twos a little bit, especially the last couple days. And I thought he had kind of a real up and down season last year. He had some really brilliant moments and some not so great ones. And his playing time was kind of all over the place. It didn't look like Mike Zimmer knew what really to do with him too. But he has Andrew Booth Jr. kind of breathing down his neck. It looks like Chandon Sullivan is going to be set to play most of those nickel snaps. And even rookie Caleb Evans, he's been making some waves at camp. So if he wants to hold on to that starting gig in his third season, I think he's going to have to earn it. But I think you have to go with the most to prove. It's Garrett Bradbury. Like it has to be because I mean this already was a prove it year going into training camp because the Vikings didn't pick up his fifth-year option as a first-round pick, and the reports so far aren't great for Bradbury. It's really seems like his hold on that starting center position is very tenuous, and if that isn't that enough to prove for a fourth-year guy, a former a mid-round first-round pick, if he can't get out of his rookie contract of being a starter, especially on this offensive line that has had so much trouble at the interior of the offensive line, it has to be that. What do you think, Ryan? Who else might have something to prove?
Well, I mean, I think you named like six guys there. No, I was going to say Garrett Bradbury as well, just because honestly, we're already hearing rumors that we're looking at trade options and free agent options from Doogie Wolfson today, mentioning that we're testing the waters there. But maybe trying to go a little bit outside the box here. I was going to say Cam Bynum. He obviously had the
Mm-hmm.
inside track to take that starting safety job. Obviously, Lewis Cine comes into the scene and as a first round pick, so he's got a lot to prove to show that hey, I can still be that guy. I can still put in quality minutes, which it looks like it's encouraging the fact that we're putting in some three safety packages, which is
Mm-hmm.
showing to the talent that he has that we don't just want to make him a backup. He's proving to be a little bit more talented than maybe the coaching staff may have thought when they drafted Lewis Cine in the get go there. So I totally agree with you on the Kellen Mond take. That was going to be my backup. Just the fact that hey, you got to prove if you can't prove that you can be a backup now, your career is done after your first contract, and maybe even before then. So you got to really put up put up or go home essentially in that situation for Kellen Mond. So those are some of the ones that I was thinking of. But my number one as is yours, Garrett Bradbury.
Yeah, and it's almost unfathomable because everyone was so psyched about that pick. It was such a need position, and it didn't seem like a reach. It just hasn't worked out. And again, the run blocking has been there. The pass blocking, it's just he can get shoved around by big nose tackles. And guess what? The NFC North has usually been full of his entire career, big nose tackles. So, all right, my first question for you is: which position battle are you most interested in training camp?
Yeah, I've been really, really intrigued, and I mentioned on the show last night. I've been really intrigued by the cornerback battle. You had already
Hmm.
kind of briefly mentioned it with the Cam Dantzler, Andrew Booth. So I was on record on our show saying I would have taken Booth at 12. Now, I'm glad we didn't. I'm glad we got him at 42 or wherever it was that we ended up landing him. Uh, I think that dude has that much talent. And then all reports coming out of training camp is that he's just a dog. Like he's got that dog
Hmm.
mentality. I'm going to get in your face and let you know that I just shut you down. And that's the type of mentality our defense needs now that we don't have a defensive head coach that can, fire up the guys, right? We need somebody who's going to be on the field leader. We haven't really had that, right? I mean, if you think about it from a perspective of our defense, Harrison Smith's a quiet guy. Eric Kendricks, he can
Sure.
get a little boisterous, but he's a kind of a quiet leader. Barr was a quiet leader. Everson
Hmm.
was our vocal leader, and he, obviously he's had his situations happen over the last few years. And Danielle Hunter, again, a quiet leader. So having guys like Cine and Booth in here to, create that just that dog mentality of our defense, I think is going to be huge. So I'm excited to see how that plays out with Cam Dancer, who by all accounts is having a phenomenal camp, and then Andrew Booth, again by all accounts, who's having a phenomenal camp, and then you have Evans, as you had mentioned, who's coming in, making play after play after play. I really liked him coming out of Missouri in the draft, and the fact that we got him in the fourth round, I was ecstatic. So we have a lot of good competition, and I think the future, and I'm not going to say they're going to be great year one, but the future of the CB room is going to be bright, in my opinion. How about you?
Yeah, I think that was definitely my. I was going to kind of cheat and say the secondary as well because I think the whole back end of the defense. It's really curious to see how those snaps are going to get divvied up because there's a lot of options right now, and like that's my. I think my favorite thing. You know who really thinks Andrew Booth is really good? Andrew Booth. Like that, he's coming in, he's talking the talk, and he's walking the walk. He isn't perfect in camp. He's still missing some. He's still a rookie. He's still going to have those mistakes. But yeah, it's just that it's nice to have that swag and that attitude especially in that end of the football. Because yeah, like you touched on, Harrison Smith is like literally he's a silent assassin, and Danielle Hunter, it's hard to get 2 words out of him during interviews. I think it was kind of telling that most of the interviews he's done have been with Zadarius Smith, who is more outspoken. That's another one who's really bringing some actual voice to this defense as well. I mean, there really aren't a ton on the offensive side of the ball. Like I touched on already, like the offense is kind of set outside of the interior offensive line that we talked about in position. And picking the least bad center and the least bad right guard isn't exactly a thrilling competition there. And the most of the other areas we have a pretty good idea of who's going to start. You can maybe say the interior of the defensive line. We don't know exactly how snaps are going to be divvied up, but again, there are a lot of good options there as well. But I think, like you said, it's the secondary is definitely the most interesting. We touched on Dantzler and Booth, and safety is going to be interesting too, because I think they have 3 really good options right now. Again, Bynum's sample size last year wasn't large by any means. He didn't see the field outside of the couple games that Smith was out, but it was very positive. The returns were good, so I think it's really intriguing to see how they're going, and even the backups who they're going to keep on the back end, and who's going to make the final 53 is going to be interesting in the secondary as well. All right,
Absolutely.
what do you got for the next
Absolutely.
question?
All right, so we're gonna go into just conferences. Taking a look at that in 2022, who do you think is going to be the more competitive conference, the AFC or the NFC?
Well, when Flip first gave me this question, I just laughed at it. I'm like, of course it's the AFC. Like, but I mean, I guess if the better conference for the Vikings to be in is definitely the NFC, and it might actually be the more competitive conference. After the top few teams, for the NFC, there are three teams in the NFC. You figure that they have the 3 of the 7 playoff spots. Outside of something catastrophe happening, you'd have the defending champion Rams, you have the Bucks, and you have the Packers. If the Rams are still pretty loaded, the Bucks and the Packers, if they have Brady and Rodgers and they stay upright most of the season, it's hard to see them falling off. And I hate complimenting Green Bay this much, but their defense is probably going to be very good this year, especially their secondary. That would be so. And if the Vikings can get anywhere close to the Green Bay secondary, that's gonna be great. But I mean, you look at the AFC, there are every division is going to be pretty competitive, maybe outside of the AFC East, because we can't really figure out what the Patriots are doing. Like, it's just bizarre. But the Bills are really good. I mean, the Chiefs are going to be good. The entire AFC West, they've been basically having a Cold War arms race since the offseason started for the last 6 months. It's like every great player, every great free agent, oh, they ended up on the Chargers or the Raiders or the Chiefs. It's absolutely crazy how good that is. And the AFC North is going to be, I think, pretty good too. The Browns, and we can talk about their quarterback situation in on and off the field. That's a different story for a different time. But the Browns are going to be good, I think, overall. And the Ravens, with how much they had go wrong last year, if they just basically can stay healthy and stay out of bad luck, they're going to be competitive. And the AFC South, okay, maybe it looks like the Colts, and I think the Titans. Personally, I think they'll take a step back. But if you look at the just getting into the playoffs, I think the AFC is going to be a much tougher conference to get into.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think AFC is going to be the crown jewel actually for probably a couple years now. I mean, if you take a look at all the young, good to great potential or already shown quarterbacks in this league, all are in the AFC. You got Josh
Yep.
Allen for the Bills, Patrick Mahomes for the Chiefs, Joe Burrow for the Bengals, Justin Herbert for the Chargers, Lamar Jackson for the Ravens. Like, all of the high quality talent, young high quality talent. The next
Right.
wave of great QBs, the Breezes and Brady's and Peyton Mannings of our generation, when we were kids growing up, that's an AFC right now. So I think that they're going to be the better conference for some time, but that doesn't mean that the NFC can't come in and do work, because like you had mentioned, there's a better, easier path for us to get to the playoffs not being in the AFC. There's not great quarterbacks anymore. The two great quarterbacks in our division or in our conference are 38 and 45. So,
Hmm.
the mantle's about to pass with those guys. And you have Jalen Hurts. You don't know what you got there. You got Kyler Murray. He's shown flashes of greatness, but he's also shown some. Personally, I think a lot
Apparently
of
has
Kyler
to
Murray's
apparently he has to study a lot too.
right. I do think a lot of the issues with Kyler Murray is more on the coaching than it is the actual quarterback there. But
I hear
still, I
you.
mean, a lot of talent there. But like, and then outside of that, you got a bunch of like this middling, aging, mid-level guys like Kirk Cousins, it's Matthew Stafford, Jimmy Garoppolo currently right now. So we just don't know what we have there. So I think the AFC is going to be the better conference for some time.
Yeah, and there are so many unknowns with all of the NFC quote unquote contenders, and that's the thing. Like there's going to be, I think, at least one or two teams in the NFC that really surprise people. Just
Mm-hmm.
the fact that they made the playoffs. All right, my second question for you: will the new culture brought in by KOC in the front office make a difference on the field this year for the Vikings? Because the vibes are good
Yeah,
right now.
Yeah, you got to think it will, right? I mean, when players are playing a little bit more loose and they're just having fun and they're not so worried about like you can see it in Cam Dancer in camp already. Like he's not worried about going to the doghouse, right? So he's playing a little bit more loose, which is allowing him to make plays. You look at Justin Jefferson. Obviously, he's already been really good, but you look at him in that interview he had on NFL Network the other night, and you can just tell he's just like, yeah, I'm ready to swag out. I'm ready to put up Cooper Cup numbers, right? Like there's
Hmm.
just a different feel. And I feel like when players are able to kind of be themselves, they produce at a better rate. So I think that this new culture, Quasi being here, bringing in the right people in collaboration, like that's the issue that our old regime had. The collaboration wasn't there between Zim and Spielman at the end. I think it was there early on, but at the end
Hmm.
they drifted apart. And having that collaboration with those two is going to create a lot of I know they said they hate this word, but a lot of symmetry with the team or synergy that's going to be with the team
Synergy.
that's
There you
going to
go.
allow them to produce at a high level.
Yeah, and again, like it's nice to see all the reports and it's fun to see all the Instagram videos of everyone dancing in the training room and stuff like that. And it's fun to see these interviews. Again, it has to translate into wins on the field because if the Vikings go 4-13 or something like that this season, and I don't think that the swag and the interviews are going to be quite the same. But yeah, it has to help. I think just at the end of Zimmer's regime, he was the old stubborn guy who just refused to change, and it really, I think, just his hard ass old school football, straight out of central casting from the mid-century football kind of stuff. It wore thin on everyone, and I think just the culture of athletes since Zimmer started his head coaching career has really evolved. I mean, people are they're online, they're promoting themselves a lot, and I think it's a fine line between promoting yourself and still being a part of the team. But it's so far so good. I mean, it's just refreshing to see, and it looks like they're having fun, and they're not so worried, especially those guys on defense if they screw up something else, they're gonna get put in the. I like to call it the Josh Robinson Memorial Mike Zimmer doghouse. I think he was the first one I noticed at camp. Basically, he got put in the doghouse and he never got out. Like stuff like that. It
Right.
seems like Zimmer, he'd make up his mind and that would be it. So yeah,
Well,
I'm with you.
here's the thing. Dave actually made a great point last night on this topic specifically. The Vikings needed that hard nosed, rough ass Zimmer when he came in. We needed
Sure.
that, but now we're at a point where we're ready to move on to a more players coach, and I think that's what we're getting. So, perfect. So, which Vikings player is going to be on your fantasy team this year?
Well, I mean, the obvious answers are Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook, but I don't know if they're going to be on my fantasy team this year because they are going to take a lot of draft capital. Whether you're doing a traditional snake or an auction draft, they are going to be at or maybe near the top or maybe at the top of each of their respective positions because they're both going to get a lot of touches, they're both going to get a lot of yards, and hopefully they're going to get in the end zone quite a bit.
And
So I mean,
especially because we're in Minnesota, right? So like those
oh,
guys
exactly.
like obviously get inflated even more.
Yep, I call it the Viking tax. If you're in a fantasy league with fellow Vikings fans, it's always more fun to cheer for your team and get fantasy points out of the guy. That's always great. Um, Irv Smith might be an interesting one. Maybe you can get Adam Thielen a little later this year because his stock seems to be slipping a little bit. But Thielen always seems to find the end zone. Even last year, where he was a little banged up, didn't get as many targets because Jefferson had a breakout year, but he still can get in the end zone and still score you some points. And Irv, if he's on the field, it'll have to happen one of these days. But the one I want to talk about a little bit is Kirk Cousins. He's kind of low key, especially for his value that he usually goes in fantasy football. Like he's usually a mid to late round pick in snake drafts, and you don't have to break the bank for him because everyone's paying for Patrick Mahomes and all the AFC guys that you mentioned, the Josh Allens and everything like that. If you can get him for cheap, there's going to be a couple weeks, I still think, where Kirk it'll probably be in Vikings wins actually, like where, he'll throw up only like a $180 and a touchdown or something like that and not really do much. But even in I think the Vikings defense is still going to be a work in progress. I think they're going to be a better unit, but they're going to still allow some points. And he's usually pretty dependable. He'll get you those yards. I mean, if you look at the box scores and especially the cumulative, and he's always available too. That's the thing. He missed the one game last season, but other than that, I mean, it wasn't due to injury. So like he's always there. He's always there for points. Maybe you don't want him to be a quarterback one, but I think if I had to guess who might be, I think that's actually might be the best value on the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking at KJ Osborne because you're going to be able to get him at pretty much
Yep.
at the end of the draft. And I think he's going to put up really good numbers this year. I mean, not that I'm never going to wish this, but Adam Thielen's never been, or over the last couple of years, he hasn't been the model of health. So having that ability to have that next guy up and the way he's
For sure.
performing. But my answer is going to be Greg Joseph because all these 60-yard field goals are making me excited. So I'm going to go there.
No, that's actually a really good one too, because that's part of the culture too. It's weird. The kicker's finally making all his kicks because he knows he's not going to get murdered if he misses one. That
Right?
might be a part of the culture as well. All right, we got just over a minute left. We're going back to we're going to our final question here. So, who will be the breakout star on the 2022 Vikings?
Christian Darrisaw, left tackle of the
Like it.
future, is going to come in. He's going to be what I thought he was going to be, which, again, if you go back to last year's draft coverage, I was all about Darrisaw. I said he was my offensive tackle 2, and I was just ecstatic about him. I was so happy we got him, even in a trade back that was insane. I'm all about Christian Darrisaw and his potential as a star for our team going forward.
Yeah, I like that, and I think it might be cheating just because he's the first round pick. But Lewis Cine, like he's too good to not make some impact plays. And the one thing this defense has been lacking, especially the last couple seasons, is big impact plays, turnovers, splash plays, stuff that flips the field. And I think he can come in and do that. He did that all the time in Georgia, and I think he's going to be a big part of this defense. Another low key one I want to mention quick in our last 10 seconds, Jordan Hicks, because we're really thin at linebacker, and I think he's going to have to play a really big part in this defense.
Brian
And
Asamoah, special team star.
there you go. Boom. Look at that. Right at the buzzer. We nailed it again. I love it. And then we saw Flip in the comments. He made it out of his car. Congratulations. But Brian,
Yeah.
this was you did awesome. This is another great fill-in performance by you. I believe this is your second or third opinion
I think second.
appearance on here. Okay. This
Yeah.
was great. Love seeing all the comments. It's great to be back. Our girl Mary, it's great to see you. We know you've had a pretty rough offseason as well, so it's awesome to see you back in the comments. And next week we'll actually have like kind of real football to talk about on the show. Like we'll be discussing the Raiders game, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. We're inching closer to that 2020. I think we're actually exactly a month away today, so that's exciting.
Yeah, literally a month away. So super excited, and thank you for having me on. This show is so much fun to have that 20 minutes and just jam it all in. So anytime you guys need help, I'm here. So thank you.
Well, if this traffic keeps up for Flip, we might have to keep doing it. All right, Dave, you got any party shots for us?
Yes. Next week is Tuesday night and the new night when the guys come on. Also, big shout out to our sponsors, Lake Monster Brewing. They have their newest beer is Purple Rain. Are you drinking Purple Rain or are you drinking?
I'm not drinking Purple Rain. I'm just drinking their the IPA. I always forget the name of the IPA, but yes, I am drinking Lake Monster. Yes, I am drinking the Lake Monster.
And Purple Rain is a fruit ale. It's based on Pinot grapes, black currants, blackberries, all sorts of other berries, and it looks absolutely delicious.
Can't wait
It's
to get
not
some.
only on tap. I talked to Matt Lang, the brewmeister. It's also available in cans. So if you're in the local area, viewing area, by all means, pick up some. You know it's going
And,
to be fantastic.
and if you haven't been out to the brewery before, check it out. I love that area at Lake Munster. It's cool.
This weekend, the next show will be Saturday. Two old bloggers will come on at 2 o'clock in the afternoon Central. Game starts at 3:25. We will be your pre-game show. And then at the 2-minute warning at the end of the game, we will go live again with the final cut. The final score, our post-game show, and we will be live for that. Should be interesting to see who plays and how well. So join us on Climbing the Pocket.
All right, stay tuned for much, much more. Thanks again, everyone in the comments, and we will see you next week. And I always say at the end of this one, Skol!
Skol Vikings! Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite aggregator. And a special shout out goes to our partners, the Daily Norseman, where the best Vikings content can be found, and to Lake Munster Brewing, home of the best beer in Minnesota. Skol, everybody.